Picture this, everyone. It's the 1980s, and your mom is in the living room, decked out in bright lycra, sweating it out to a Jane Fonda aerobics tape. Fast forward to the 2000s, and your dad might have been hitting the gym, lifting weights to the sound of rock music blasting through his iPod. Now, if you look around, you might see your younger sibling or child getting their workout inspiration from a viral TikTok dancing challenge or an at-home yoga flow. I'm personally also having visions of my sister-in-law doing a Bollywood Zumba class with an online audience, watching her on Zoom. Flashback COVID-19. So much time passes by, but movement continues. And even when the world came to a hard stop a few years ago, the human being has needed a reason to keep their body moving for so many reasons, whether it was to get to work by foot in a remote village, scrub the floors before mops and robots existed, or as so many people claim today, it's a fundamental need for better mental health. Fitness trends have always been a reflection of the times, shaping not only how we move, but why we move. Each generation has its own approach to staying fit, influenced by culture, technology, and society's evolving understanding of health. From baby boomers to Gen Z and even the youngest members of Gen Alpha, every generation has its signature way of getting active, with a few timeless lessons passed down. Hello, everyone. I am Goldie, your host for today.
And I'm Lakshan, your co host. And this is episode 7 of the Mind the Gen Gap podcast.
Lakshan, as I narrated to you my vision, this has actually brought back very vivid memories of me buying my first workout VHS tape of Cindy Crawford's Shape Your Body. We're going back to 1992. I'm honestly not sure how much it truly shaped my body, or I just followed a trend that belonged in the 80s and the 90s. And since we are speaking of trends, it means a lot to us that you guys follow us so we truly become a trend in your life. Please subscribe to our podcast in case you haven't already. You see that little bell? Well, you can click on it right about now. Lakshan, do you know what VHS stands for?
Video, home, something.
System.
I was so close. 2 out of 3, 66%. I'll take it. I'll take it.
Uh, I had to put that in. Sorry. Okay, so guys, in today's episode, we're going to be diving into the fitness journeys of different generations, highlighting the workouts that have defined eras, how motivations have shifted, and the way each generation continues to stay active. Let me start with a question for all of you listening. Was fitness a part of your daily routine growing up? If I'm being very honest, my answer would be a no. In fact, I distinctly remember almost dreading any kind of cardio activity. This was largely because I associated it with the limitations that I believed my asthma placed on my ability to exercise effectively. Looking back, I realized my parents were quite misinformed about this, which in turn shaped my own reluctance towards fitness. It wasn't until I was nearly 16 that things began to change. I was introduced to racket sports like tennis and started taking private lessons. With the support of a coach who made me feel safe, I realized my asthma was never the barrier that I had imagined. My coach even encouraged me to take up swimming, framing fitness as something to enjoy rather than something to fear or feel ashamed of. There's so much to unpack in this experience, to be fair, but it was a turning point in how I viewed fitness and my own potential. Lakshan, you are a couple of decades younger to me. Can you tell me how, education and fitness was for you growing up?
So, my experience with fitness and more so education around fitness was, I want to say non existent because that would be accurate. Um, I think the only say form of fitness I had done when I was younger would be when I went for when I was part of Taekwondo, right? So that is where I got a portion of my fitness from. I was also obsessed with cricket when I was younger. So I remember going for cricket coaching as well. Now, these are the two forms of fitness that I had engaged in when I was younger. When I was my yeah, when I was about 10, 11, 12, 13, around my early adolescent years. And I can't say I had much education around fitness. It was education around taekwondo, education around cricket, and it just so happened that me keeping my body active contributed to my fitness. Even in school, when we used to have um, like one period a week or so for physical education, we didn't have any real education happening per se. It was more so what for us was the 40 minutes in a week where we got to take a ball and kick about with our friends. So that's all the physical education or fitness education we got when I was growing up.
Yeah, it's so interesting. We are 2 decades apart, yet there seems to be a void in this area of being educated in a topic which is so important, I would say, and relevant to our whole existence and sort of the wholeness of how we lead our lives on a day to day, especially now and today in this day and age when we are able to observe so much of this on social media, for example, which of course we can come back to later. But I am also picking up that you enjoyed the two things that you played or participated in. So this element of fun is very important when one decides to talk about fitness to become a part of your social life or something that keeps you moving, right? And based on what you're saying and what I've answered, I also conducted a survey where I received around 100 responses. Most of the participants were Gen X, with the rest being a mix of boomers, millennials, and a very small percentage from Gen Z. I asked the same question that I began this episode with. Was fitness encouraged as part of your daily routine growing up? The majority answered a no, but there was a noticeable exception from the younger participants that did say yes. Okay, that's a small observation to make. I also asked how people felt fitness levels have actually changed across generations. And the majority, this is about 66.7%, believed that fitness levels have improved, largely due to increased awareness, something that you and I both corroborate we did not have enough of. So this is obviously suggesting that more people are going to the gym today, thanks to better, access to information about health and fitness. You and I both are avid gym goers, correct? I would like to say that too. I'd also like to share at this moment an insightful response from a fitness professional who participated in the same survey. Let me read to you what he had to say. I feel personally that due to the awareness and availability of information from boomers to millennials, there has been a giant leap. However, at the same time, I work mostly with millennials, showing that even though there's a greater ease and information, it's still not 100% ingrained. I don't know a huge amount of Gen Zers, but I see them more conscious about their health, what they put into their bodies, etc. But I don't see them as strong in terms of being gym goers as millennials and even boomers. In the majority of gyms that I go to, I feel it's probably a ratio of 30% boomers, 50% millennials, and perhaps 20% Gen Zers. I was intrigued by all this insight, Lakshan, and I know that you do have something to say on this. Can you share your reflections and especially what you notice in India?
So when it comes to Gen Z, the 20% um, that this professional was speaking about. I would agree with him on that. Um, the reason being that even the gym in my apartment complex, for the most part, I see a lot of people who are definitely older, right? They have their own personal trainer coming and training them. Apart from that, I would say people who are millennials, around my age group, zillennials even, are the people who are a lot more in the gym, and they come at whenever they can, whatever time they can. With respect to Gen Z, what I have noticed, this is just my personal opinion, I feel like a lot of them started going to the gym once they got into college, university, whatever, wherever you are, you call it differently, right? And I don't want to speculate, but I think there is definitely some kind of a relationship between um, a Gen Z person going to the gym and the fact that they are going to college as well. Maybe they want to stand out, look good, whatever it is. Right? They want to uh, be attractive, develop an aesthetic physique. That's something we've spoken about very recently, even. And I also think that's where the dangers can come in, because as this professional has said, while there is a lot more ease and information, it's not 100% ingrained. I think because there is so much information, so many different kinds of information floating about everywhere, so to pick and choose what is the right one to follow gets a little difficult, right? And social media trends are trends for a reason. They go up and they go down, and unfortunately there's a lot of focus on the aesthetic part of fitness rather than the health part of it. And a lot of people I've noticed are slowly moving into the more unhealthy diet trends. And people, I can't say this for a fact because I'm not seeing it myself, but I do know that there are people, younger people, who are, the younger millennials and older Gen Z gym goers who are also into taking performance enhancing drugs to make their physique look a lot more attractive than it is. So those are my reflections, Goldie. I think
Hmm.
while it's, for whatever reason, the fact that someone's going to the gym, I don't want to complain about it. You go to the gym, it's an amazing thing.
Hmm.
But I think intentions also become very important
Hmm.
to consider after a certain point.
Yes, and I think you have hit the nail, Lakshan, because the the point about aesthetics being important to the human being is a long running story. It's not something that we see more today and we saw less yesterday. I mean, if Jane Fonda was doing videos back in the 80s, it was all about the body image. And actually, the survey proved this as well. The question that I asked was, how have, trends in the exact question was, are there generational differences in motivations for exercising? And there was a number of options that I gave, and the majority responded that younger generations are more motivated by aesthetics. And then there was a question that said, but all generations have been attracted to aesthetics. So the point is, if you were doing this before and you're doing it now, there's a caveat, a very important one, which is what you mentioned. uh, the information available to the younger cohorts, which is coming more readily through social media and platforms, can be either very interestingly positive or misleading. And in a world where we are observing the need for instant results, instant gratification comes into this. I think one has to pay close attention to how are these younger kids doing what they're doing at the gym, and what results are they expecting, and what mindset are they in? Is it to lose weight or is it to lose fat? And I think that sums up for me the differences between how our younger cohorts are, viewing their journey of health and fitness. Definitely there's more awareness, but I feel that there should be more awareness given at an earlier stage in their lives, say in school, or as you mentioned, in college. If college is an attractive point of start for them to start looking the way they want to look, they need to be backed up and supported with the right information, you know? Um, and I think this is where I want to sort of pick up on an important point, which even on a global level concerns many of us, which is how has the prevalence of obesity or sedentary lifestyles shifted between different generations? 55.7% responded that it has actually increased in younger generations. I was a bit shocked by this because it was my own survey and I didn't quite give it the same credibility. So I did some more research. And effectively, I got data from a study that was conducted by Oxford University and UCL jointly, and it has analyzed that they analyzed data over a 14-year period that ended in 2018. And they found that obesity, diabetes, and chronic diseases all seem to be affecting far more those born between 1950s and 60s rather than peers born before World War II. So, in the context of generation brackets, boomers and Xers are far more likely to be suffering these diseases than their older counterparts, which are the silent generation. And according to Laura Germano, she's the lead on the UCL study, this trend reflects the changing social and environmental contexts across lifetimes. So, rising obesity, for example, is because of health inequalities across generations, and that's what plays a significant role. For example, Generation X is more likely to experience obesity, diabetes, and poor mental health compared to boomers in their 40s. And these health concerns are supposedly only rising for future generations. So let's remember that 2018 was not sufficient to monitor and measure Gen Z. They were too young at that point. But apparently it's on the rise. And this is worrying, isn't it, as a piece of data that we're finding from an important study. So I wonder if there's a larger need to educate, as I said, the younger cohorts from a much younger age on the implications of nutrition and other fitness elements. That might be the growing sort of the antidote to fix this problem for health data being so dark and gloomy for the younger generations. And obviously I've noticed this contrast, right, between worsening medical and mental health of generations over time, despite a growing awareness of the importance of fitness. So whilst mental health and medical health is on the low, it's becoming worse, fitness awareness is rising. And this explains why there's a surge in low-cost gyms, a trend towards boutique fitness studios, and of course the increasing popularity of hiring an online fitness coach, which again I know what this world is about. This is actually reflection of the urgency of addressing these health challenges. However, there is that part which is missing, the misinformation and the right way to educate the younger cohorts. And so I think I want to emphasize that fitness is no longer just about looking after the body, but also about mental fitness. And, this is an interesting piece of data I found also whilst doing my survey in terms of how millennials and Gen Z interpret their fitness. Their fitness is centered around being a part of a larger community, blending with social interaction, training alongside people who share similar goals. I can see you nodding, and this is obviously echoing with you. Providing support in and out of the gym. And fitness coaches have actually built tight-knit communities that go beyond videos, offering lifestyle guidance like nutrition, even business tips. And where's this coming from? Well, it's coming from a need of wanting to pay very curated attention to your needs. We see this in the coffee choices that the millennials and Gen Z are making. and all their digital experiences are so personalized. Hence, their fitness trends are also being catered in a personal way. What comes to your mind, because I saw you smiling, about this so-called holistic experience that I speak about?
Yeah, so when you spoke about the online fitness coaches
Mm,
and what you were sharing with respect to that, I immediately got reminded of how similar my own personal experience is to what you just shared, and
yeah.
how I told you very recently I engaged a fitness coach for myself because I realized that I don't want to spend so much time by myself figuring out what works for me, what doesn't work for me, and all that stuff. And let me just outsource uh, this task to a professional, someone who knows what they're doing, right? And I'm now part of this person's community, a very tight knit community, as you said, where he does, of course, share a lot of videos, infographics, personal experiences, whatever material that will work for us, to keep ourselves accountable and to help us get through that day into the next one, right? So to keep us motivated and accountable. And one thing that he does is, just as you said, uh, curate something that is very personal to your needs. So in case of, for me, I'm someone who travels fairly frequently nowadays, and I told him, hey, I travel quite a bit, and I find it difficult to stay committed to my fitness goals. He said, no problem, we can work with that. Diet, we can work with that. Whatever it is that I shared with him, he said, no problem, we can work with that. So as you were sharing this, the holistic experience aspect, I was smiling the whole way through because I can relate to it now. I can relate to it so deeply now. And I remember when I mentioned this to you last week or so, when I told you I'm going to be engaging a fitness coach because I want someone else to handle this mental load. You said it's music to your ears because I know you've been engaging with fitness coaches for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, I think for the for the bigger picture, this seems to be a sensible solution that's covering those dangers that we spoke about earlier, right? And how are you choosing to go to the gym and what are your goals? If you are following videos that maybe social media is offering you, some may be reliable, but others may not be at all reliable. So if you can get yourself somebody that can just educate you a little bit, in this case, the answer would be a fitness coach. That would be wonderful. However, I do understand the limitations for a lot of Gen Zers, which would be finance, because it's not cheap, obviously, to get yourself a coach. It's already hard enough to get yourself your favorite coffee because it's so expensive as well. And I think going to the gym has to be a real motivation, right? To want to go and do the right thing. It's hard enough to get even inspired to walk into the gym because you're feeling lethargic or tired. And then even if you go and you're doing the wrong thing, well, that's just a recipe for disaster. Um, so, this is kind of covering, as we said, the more recent generations where we are obviously seeing this surge of wanting to get more educated and look after yourself. And that's a lot of what my research has shown. But, I want to do a full circle now on my dialogue about fitness because in my survey, I was only able to get two responses from the silent generation. And as you know, everyone knows we are such firm believers of being inclusive on our podcast. So we can't leave them out. And so it seemed very important to put a spotlight on them. So I had the privilege of having a phone conversation with an 89-year-old woman who happens to be a member of our family. She spoke to me about how she viewed fitness, or what she calls exercise, in her yesteryears. I'm going to play an audio extract of her testimonial, and then I'm going to translate it because it's spoken in her mother tongue, Sindhi, for those of you who want to know what language she is speaking in. So I'm going to go ahead and play to you guys the audio.
एक्सरसाइज तभी का कार्यक्रम पंज कंदी हुअसि मेन स्ट्रीट में वेंदी हुअसि बैंकुनि में वेंदी हुअसि पंहिंजो पाण खे हलाईंदी हुअसि ॿियो बाक़ी वाह गुरूअ जी दया हुई डॉक्टर वॉक्टर बि घणा कोन हूंदा हुआ संभाल सां हलंदा हलाईंदा हुआसीं पंहिंजे शरीर खे पंध कंदी हुअसि हेठि लहंदी हुअसि मिड़ई पाण खे जीअं हलाइबो आहे नॉर्मल नमूने तीअं हलाइमि पई ठीकु हुअसि वाह गुरूअ जी दया हुई रोज़ सत्संग में वेंदी हुअसि रोज़ उहो पंधु करे वेंदी हुअसि बसि जीअं हलबो आहे तीअं हलंदी हुअसि पर दुखी कान हुअसि तमामु सुठी लाइफ पास थी आसिरे वाह गुरूअ जे ॿियो का एक्सरसाइज़ कोन कंदासीं स्विमिंग कोन हूंदी हुई स्कूल विस्कूल बि कोन 40 में बि पंहिंजो हलंदा हुआसीं सुठे नमूने हलाइबो पाण खे वेही कोन रहंदी हुअसि
Just to give you all some context, this is a lady who is called Padma. We call her Padma Auntie. And in a nutshell, what she mentioned was she dedicated a lot of her days to making sure she was always mobile and never sedentary. She paid a lot of focus on keeping herself walking a lot. The word walking came up a lot in her dialogue. And another thing that struck me was she focused a lot on her faith in God. And this gave her a sense of peace, I would say, peace of mind that life was good. She so much as so said, I was happy. Life was good. And we just led a very normal, ordinary life. You know, she would go to the bank, she would go to the temple, she would visit her mother. And this lady lived in Pune for many years. So that's where her testimonial is coming from. She's currently living here in Barcelona, and I see her very regularly, not as much as I would love to, but she's 89. She has got a sharp memory, as you can see from her testimonial, very curious woman. And I think these are just clues, right, that we're getting. Padma approach to maintaining a healthy body and mind is so simple yet effective. Her recipe centers around staying around around a strong faith in God, staying active, never allowing herself to become sedentary. And I would imagine she was probably doing over 10,000 steps a day without even needing a smartwatch to track it. She remained socially connected with her family. As she said, it described her as a happy woman. You know, it's hard to argue that this isn't an ideal formula for mental and physical well-being. And now, at 89, her mind remains sharp, she stays curious, her faith is unwavering. Despite the natural wear and tear of aging, she still enjoys a short walk with the help of her walker. And, you know, may I add, she does not suffer from obesity, diabetes, or any cardiovascular disease. Lakshan, I'm curious to know, what did you pick up on from this extract?
When you mentioned that she would have walked, well over 10,000 steps a day without needing a smartwatch to track it, and how she's very much, still socially connected with her family.
Yeah.
It reminded me of a clip that I saw of Simon Sinek talking about how something about how the thigh muscles are an indicator of I think mental health or connectedness or something, because the reason he said that was because in the olden days, when you had to go out and connect with someone, you had to walk all the way there to meet them, which means you had to use your thigh muscles as you walk to go ahead and meet them and have conversations and connect with them or whatever. So I remember him. I want to find the exact clip. Maybe we can overlay it on in this episode. But I found myself reminded of that clip as you were sharing this part of her testimony. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I know the one you're talking about, and it would be great to retrieve that from somewhere. But yeah, I echo your thoughts, Lakshan. It's so simple, isn't it? It's social connection and body movement. These are the recipes for having a healthy body and mind, which she clearly did. And I was particularly taken aback by her words where she said, "Ma khush huas," which means I was happy. And this is indicative, right? In today's age, it's such a privilege to be happy because everyone's looking for happiness. So, on this, very inspiring note, we come to the end of our episode for today. I continue to believe that we all have the same body, but life has thrown us a different set of challenges in our respective generational cohorts. Padma made sure she did her steps by visiting the temple or going to the bank. And I have a watch that reminds me to stand every hour because we sit so much more. Padma didn't do yoga to find peace of mind. She stayed socially connected and prayed a lot. We are all different shades of the same color.
Yeah, and I guess with that we've come to the end of today's episode, episode number 7, which is fitness across the generations. Thank you so much for joining us and watching and listening.
Muchas gracias.
See you in the next one.
Hasta pronto.
Bye.